Greetings, readers and friends. Harvey Michaels here. I'm thrilled to welcome you to our adventure into Danshui President Plunge, Book 1, Evacuate or Pay. It was an electrifying story to write, and I can't wait to share some with you today. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Your support means the world to me. Thank you kindly. Okay, here we go. Chapter 8, Part 2, Paul Hu, Guandu Bridge. The last few hundred meters driving to the bridge, Paul takes it safe, but can't help hurrying. This nightmarish, hammering storm forces a feeling of urgency on every minute. He senses a need to get there quickly, wherever there is. He takes the circular on-ramp up to the bridge in escalating exposure and intensity. Why am I still alone? Paul fights back panic, facing the worst yet howling, side-pounding onslaught of typhoon attack. The looming 6 car lanes wide steel bridge is well illuminated under bright lights. Paul thinks he can see the other side, but can't be sure with the mind-boggling thick white bands of rain and road spray shooting across as fast as some missiles fly. The idea of crossing in this squall shocks Paul, but he steels himself and creeps closer. His eyes go wide when crosswinds pound and force the heavy Humvee to slide a little on the slick piece of road. He knows his tires are bigger and taller, but not wider, and he notes to avoid car lane centers, possibly slippery from accumulated oil drippings. He passes a no typhoon crossing sign, and then his jaw drops to see a large, older 4-door Jeep coming toward him. Paul's head tips backward in admiration for the skilled driver. The Jeep progresses steadily, sort of dancing a two-step. It's blown sideways, then veers back with spinning wheels into the car lane, going straight again. Sideways and recovering back and forth several times, then finally off the bridge. Paul shakes his head, wills his mouth to shut with one exclaimed "Lee-hi" for the driver's skill as 4 men in the Jeep pass. It blew that big Jeep around like a toy. Just as he is gathering his courage and saying out loud, "Now my turn," he notices on the far side, over 100 meters away, there's an economy car blown to the side of the bridge. Oh no, Paul thinks, if they try to drive out, it will blow them over the side for sure. He musters his courage, puts the Humvee automatic transmission in first gear, and pushes the accelerator, sliding sideways twice and recovering as the Jeep driver taught him. Paul's eyes go wide when he is almost there and can see the small Nissan facing the wrong direction, shuddering downward, then lifting, almost bouncing in the furious gales that are blowing rain and puddles off the bridge at bizarre angles and in whole, slicing, flying sheets of water. Paul senses he has to take a shot at stopping the compact car's building rhythm of precarious rocking and lifting in the super typhoon force winds. It alarms him seeing the car was not touching the strong, low metal fence near the right side of the car. Only an ankle-high curb is keeping it from sliding more or flipping. Paul makes a snap decision and aims to drive the Humvee up against the smaller car's side, hoping to pin the car against that curb, holding it in place. Now exposed high above the river, the hammering typhoon wind feels impossibly strong, twice as strong as the storm winds did before driving onto the bridge. Even the Humvee is rocking in the turbocharged, unbelievable explosions of wind. If that car is tipped up and over the fence, Paul is sure it will be blown right past the second fence outside the motorcycle lane, the final lane over. Central PD Crisis Center. We're in. There they are. Captain Tan switches and compares views between cameras on the Guandu Bridge and finds the three with the best view of the small white economy car stuck there, apparently spun around, its headlights pointing in the wrong direction. Mouths gape open at the scene, viewing surreal shapes of flattened white foam or spray shooting in the wind across the bridge in odd flat shapes, all flying almost too fast to make anything out, pushing the limits of their imagination. The cars rocking and shuddering in the storm winds. A voice in the crisis center calls out, "Something's coming!" As another vehicle comes into view on the opposite side of the divided road. They see a big red four-door Jeep blown sideways. The driver steers and accelerates, churning water under wide wheels to fight its way to where it was blown from. The command center viewers see the Jeep blown sideways and recover 3 times before it passes out of the 3 cameras' view. A voice at the table says what most were thinking. That driver was a pro. Chief Lai points to the white car stuck there and calls out an alarm from next to Colonel Han. The safety fence is no help to them. There's a low curb keeping them from leaning against the fence. Brace yourselves, everyone. We're going to see something terrible. I've already seen cars fly off roads today in traffic cams, and the winds here are much worse, Captain Tan says in a hushed tone. All the police officers in the crisis center have other tasks to attend to, but are mesmerized by the sight on the screen in front of them. Surely the 119 operators stayed on the line with them, right? The colonel calls out to no one in particular, making sure a detail is taken care of. Comfort for these poor souls. Tell the 119 operators to send an extra heavy big rig tow truck, not a lighter one, the Colonel Han adds. Then he heaves a tremendous sigh. The hard-nosed colonel looks atypically emotional. He takes off his glasses, rubs his eyes, and quietly says to no one, "They are as good as dead." Guandu Bridge. Paul maneuvers the Humvee to squish against the other car so it won't get blown over, not without his much heavier Humvee too. He matches the Humvee's higher back windows to the Nissans, lining them up for evacuating whoever is in the car. Paul rolls down the back window and screams coming from the car are audible, even with the storm's ear-splitting roaring and shrieking. He secures the Humvee parking brake and then switches on the police loudspeaker. He pulls out the microphone on its long cord as he climbs into the back seat. He talks to the people in the car. "Hello there. Hey there. Listen, I'm a policeman. I'm scared too, but we have to move now. The storm is still getting bigger. Please listen to me." They stop screaming and turn away from staring out windows at the rushing river over to his open window. They look incredulously at him, and he waves at them in his best imitation of an energetic, friendly wave. "Hello, my name is Officer Hu. Let's get out of here now. Roll your back window down." He points and mimes rolling the window down. It helps bring his own panic down a notch. Paul's idea to pin their car to the curb with the back of the Humvee is working, but they have to act quickly. Their dome-shaped car and the boxy Humvee don't match up exactly flush. There is a reach of space between the vehicles, and that space is being pressured by the force that wants to lift them both off the ground. Paul realizes with alarm each time the smaller car bounces in the wind, its rear bumper against the Humvee's passenger door, the vehicles are separating millimeter by millimeter. Not good. They roll the back window down in the Nissan, and it is as if the Humvee didn't block any of the wind. Instantly, blinding wind and spray inundates the inside of the Nissan. Both of their mouths and cheeks fill and flop with air blown twice as fast as freeway speeds. Paul sees one man and one woman. "Two of you? Any children in there?" He says into the microphone again, pointing at them. Only two of you? Are there any children? They come to life and shake their heads no, while attempting to shield their eyes from the blowing attack the open window lets inside. The man lurches to the open window and, face aflutter, screams at Paul, "Take my wife first! You take her first!" Paul emphatically nods and then remembers the mic. "Yes, first your wife. Let's do this." Apparently the man tells her to go backwards and she points a foot outside. The wind blows her foot upward. "No!" Paul motions emphatically. "Head first! Give me your hand!" The Humvee skids slightly away, disorienting Paul and frightening him. He considers trying to move the Humvee back closer, but immediately decides not to. There is no time. Paul takes her right hand with his right hand, then reaches past her right hand with his left hand and grabs her right upper arm. He leans out as far as he dares and grasps her other arm with his right hand and yells loudly at her, "Head down, head down!" He feels an urgency to keep her head pointed straight ahead. Then it is like at the birth of his children. Lots of talk, and then boom, it was over. Paul pulls her through the window and does not say a single word to her. He points to the husband. "Let's go, you, now." The man thrusts out his wife's bag. Paul grabs it and throws it down inside the Humvee back seat, thudding loudly in the 119 emergency operator's ongoing phone recording. Then the man springs forward. He starts through the window too quickly, and he is leaning upward, trying to get his legs under himself in a better position. Paul realizes he might fly away in a flash. "Get back! Get back!" Their small car shudders and dances slightly away from the Humvee in a surreal stutter-stepping motion like a piece of wadded paper ready to sail away. The Humvee rocks as well, skidding, twisting even more away from the car. But compared to their economy car, it remains as solid as a boulder. Paul focuses. One more person to rescue. He is sure the space between the vehicles is growing steadily. "God help me," Paul says to himself. "Start again. Get back. Carefully, carefully." Paul sees that the man is lowering himself, not arching out like he was before. Paul exhales loudly in relief, then gasps as the Humvee skids in suddenly even higher winds, screaming the loudest yet. "Do it right now," he shouts out to give both he and the other man a signal. They begin the transfer again, quickly but methodically. The man wears a t-shirt under a sports shirt, and they both fit tight enough Paul could grab them under his arm, and they make a controlled passage within seconds. The man and woman embrace briefly and wail loudly. When they look up, Paul has already gotten into the front seat. Paul rolls the back window up, reducing the screaming wind sound by half. "We have to move now." Paul says it out loud, mostly to himself. He is breathing loudly and feeling near panic, minding his mustache in hard strokes. The wind is unimaginable, more like a movie depicting a big tornado. Changing air pressure makes his ears pop. It is hard for Paul to get himself to push the accelerator down. There is some sense of safety lodged against that little bit next to the compact car, but Paul knows something even worse is surely coming. "Let's go," he tells himself, and is relieved to see his foot obey his mouth. Paul looks forward but keeps one eye on the rearview mirror. He and the couple witness their white Nissan lifted up and over the fence they were just parked next to. Husband and wife clutch each other fiercely and cry out, choking in fear, each sound louder. "Oh, Tiana! Oh, Aya!" Watching their car continue rolling in midair off the bridge into the Danshui River below. Crisis Center. The crisis center explodes with cheering as the Humvee slowly pulls away from the Nissan, which then flies over the bridge. Everyone in the room is standing and roaring their congratulations to the three people who they watched barely escape with their lives. The Humvee driving away is pushed sideways several times in the winds that are beyond the storm winds of nightmares. Port police. Inside the Port Police HQ, nerves are stretched to the limit. Phones ring constantly and are mostly ignored. Chief Pan already called the important numbers by phone and by line. Voicemail is telling unknown callers to phone back after the crisis is resolved, unless they have pertinent information, in which case they can leave a message. Despite an added sentence specifically to news agencies stating they have no comment and they promise to comment when they know more, most messages are from news stations and reporters. They turned off the previously muted TV set, and Chief Pan told everyone to put their phones away because all the officers were standing around staring at phones or the TV with Newsy Susie's first breaking news report, which included none of the news involving Fisherman's Wharf Plunge location. Chief Pan said no work would get done if they followed news, so now they are the only ones who don't know someone filmed the event from right under their noses. Chief Pan looks down at the crime scene from one of the 3 comically small sea-facing windows in the Port Police HQ and shakes his head at the lit-up mannequins steadily waving despite insanely strong shrieking winds. Earlier, after handily flipping and tossing all the nearby chained boats and trailers into a conical pile, the winds then overturned a parked motorhome serving as the construction company's office. Howling and pounding from the wind is brutal and nonstop. They don't want to believe what their senses tell them, that the Port Police headquarters building is shaking in the storm. A good portion of the sound is muffled because the glass and walls are thick. Officers on duty hear even more wind screaming through the ceiling. No one says out loud, but they each wonder how much super typhoon beating it will take to tear the roof off. Chief, do you want us to call other PDs for help? Sergeant Chen seems patient and ready, though his tasks have been extremely pressured the last hour. Within 10 minutes of the vehicle flung into the sea, without fully realizing the situation, without thinking it through, they hurried to call police precincts not too far away for help. But it was premature to ask for assistance. The storm is simply too intense to process a crime scene. Now there are officers in squad cars in the alley downstairs, parked bumper to bumper, not even daring to exit their cars and come into the HQ. They formed in a line from the outside street, turning in past the front of the HQ where they thought a Fisherman's Wharf parking lot might be, but stopped with only docked boats in front. Cars can't go forward, and they can't back out either, parked so tightly together, and the super typhoon is peaking. Chief Pan thinks they must be on smartphones to sergeants at their own precincts who must be telling them to sit tight. No cars move, but the lights on top of their squad cars all blink wildly. From the nearby Fulon Hotel, it looks bizarrely like a huge street performance during Chinese New Year Lantern Festival. No, we don't need any more outside help until the storm eye passes. Maybe someone could think of how to get them parked and inside, though. He says this, looking at a group of officers gawking down at the flickering lights through ironically larger front-facing windows. Flashes flit over the officers' faces and the ceiling behind them, making a mini disco blue and red light show on the ceiling. Tell me, what's the word on the construction crane? When can we expect one? Chief Pan asks burly Sergeant Chen, who Pan trusts most, manning the phones. No one says when. They have to wait for the winds to decrease. They all say to ask back in a few hours. The normally good-natured sergeant's widened, squinting eyes show the pressures of asking and re-asking unanswerable questions. Keep trying different agencies and checking in with Central PD. The chief curses under his breath. This storm right now feels physically impossible, Sergeant. It feels like a tornado is on top of us. Just 10 minutes earlier, a sustained gale shook the entire building for half a minute. Most tornadoes are not this strong, Chief. The sergeant is the only person there who would venture to contradict the chief now, even about tornado strength. Walking to the seaside windows, Chief Penn mutters, "I suppose it doesn't matter except to have a report that we kept trying." The chief instantly regrets saying this out loud, though it is true enough. Covering your own backside was priority one. Cover and prove you did, for the brass to acknowledge what could be done was done. But the sergeant should not hear his superior admit it so matter-of-factly. That van is not going anywhere, and there are not likely to be any answers when we pull it out. Chief Penn turns away from looking down at the headlights dimly shining outward from the submerged van. 5 minutes pass. Sergeant Chen calls out, "Chief, look, water spouts!" Everyone crams around the small back windows, craning their necks to catch a peek. One officer hurries to get his smartphone camera on. A deep, rumbling, humming whir resonates from the sea, a new backdrop sound for the howling typhoon winds. Just a few football field lengths from the seawall towers a mighty-looking white waterspout. At the bottom, a 5-story tall semicircle, thick bowl of spray flies up and out. It feels wrong to see here an otherworldly, furious, solid tornado. A smaller twister was farther out. The ash-gray twin was barely visible in the dark typhoon skies. 30 meters across, I'd say. I didn't know they could even get that big. The chief marvels, realizing it was a sight few ever see, and felt relief that the white behemoth appeared to be creeping away from shore. Chief Penn stifles a groan, and several men grumble, all simultaneously realizing the only thing anyone else would see was the awful image their worthless camera outside would record. "Howard, we should get out and move around to get better footage of that waterspout." Mariana laughs nervously and shouts above the wind's shrieks and shuddering Volvo windows. "Be serious, Michelle." Howard jerks his thumb to the driver's side window and the line of parked police cars. He yells back just as loud, laughing too. "So far, they haven't noticed us. Just keep filming. We've got a good enough view here." For the 100th time, he sighs internally and reminds himself from a self-pitying habit that Mariana is braver and fiercer than he is. He would never really be good enough to be her boyfriend. Her face turns tender at his face full of doubt. Mariana holds her camera on its short tripod steady and turns to Howard. "Kiss me again, big, strong boyfriend." Colonel Shun. Surrounded by computer and smartphone devices, Colonel Shun deliberates. He opted out of the Typhoon police brass meeting and sits alone in his small private office upstairs from the meeting place. Colonel Shun is also in the center of an intelligent network of military and police cooperating on past and ongoing urgent missions. Few are privy to Shun's dealings, shared only piecemeal on a need-to-know basis. In the past years, there were notable coordinated law enforcement successes, but Colonel Shun only cares about one, the 2-year-old case that is still out there unsolved. 500 tons of plastic explosives went missing one night from Navy ordnance supplies. Since that heist, Shun hasn't slept well a single night. He knows what a few grams of plastic explosives could do, and he imagines what a kilogram might do. It could collapse a building or cause untold casualties in a crowded place. Besides such potential measurable harm, it would rip the net of social confidence in Taiwan's security systems. Colonel Shun scrubs his forehead with clenched fingers and knuckles of both fists, deep in anxious thought. They know what happened, which Navy sailor working in the supply armory switched cases of soap with the plastic explosives. They found him 10 hours after he exited the Suao base in a supply truck with soap, delivering orders he printed himself. He was dead of a heroin overdose, sitting up against the truck. The needle was still in his arm, rife with an addict's track marks from many previous injections. None of the dead man's family, friends, and co-workers knew anything or saw anything amiss. He was always a drinker, and the months before they all assumed he found a new bar or a new girl. No one suspected drugs, and they all passed lie detector tests. All were shocked he stole something important. That was all they were told, and shocked he was suddenly dead and gone. Colonel Shen feels a personal responsibility to solve the case, though rationally he has no such obligation. He understands his friend Willie's obsession with finding Pieface's killer. The case fuels an additional urgency he feels to overhaul police and military intelligence, computer and operation systems. Colonel Shen knows it is essential to cooperate and coordinate, but so far it is slow going as too few in high places want to face the expense and political turf war hassles. The growing fear of imminent catastrophe these months is peaking inside him like Super Typhoon Noru in the north. Such a huge, professional, and outlandish crime in Danshui triggers a hunch. This is it. And it tweaks every anxious nerve in him. Willie and Dee. We made it out of Taichung over the steep incline out of Taiwan's central plain where the freeway expands to 6 lanes on the incline to accommodate different speeds of maxed out vehicles straining against the straight, steep grade up into Miaoli County. Half an hour later, remaining diffused sunlight through heavy clouds took its leave. Rain falls steady with occasional gusts, but nothing so far resembling a typhoon or even a tropical storm. Not yet. We expect extreme weather to begin any minute. We have just over an hour of normal travel time before we enter Taipei. It is only a question of when we witness the outside fingers of the actual typhoon itself. Technically, the strongest winds don't venture over 50 kilometers from the eye of the storm, but thick outer swirling cords of the storm can whip as hellishly and destroy as potently as the ones nearer the typhoon eye. Alone with my thoughts, I regret the Samson task I am leaving Ibi with. Ibi and I are clear that our old dog's life is nearing its end. We will do what we can to let him enjoy the end of his life, as long as it is mostly painless. Our 15-year-old Pooch, bought when our sons were also just puppies to distract them from major injuries I was recovering from, is now a family member. I remember a couple months earlier at the beginning of the school semester, Willie and I talking about Samson at a Ponderosa salad bar. Samson was doing a lot better then. Now Willie reads my mind on the freeway. So, what are you going to do about your dog? Well, why do you want to talk about Samson? I don't really, but he's a big part of your day, your life. You know what I think. Give it an injection and let him take his final longest rest. Samson's a he, not an it. And I would if he were in pain, but he's not, so I won't. We had this exact interaction before. I know Willie's sparing my conscience in advance for the inevitable. He's what, 15? That dog has lived the best life any dog ever did, and every dog has it great, right? It's a dog's life. Yeah, for sure. Samson's been on every vacation we took when the boys were little. On the boat to Green Island twice. We even hauled him out on the rafts when we snorkeled. Ancient history, Dee. What's Samson like today? He knows the answer. You know, I've been experimenting with his diet, adding coconut oil, right? Yeah, you said it gave him more pep. So I added more, and his poop came easier for him too. So you added more? Willie prompted me. Yep, yesterday we found out too much is too much. Diarrhea, puke. Oh man, that's disgusting. Yeah, and you got to get it up quick or a dog will go back and stop right there. I got it. We're figuring out how to maintain his pee drips all over the place. As I talk, Willie is nonstop shaking his head, good-naturedly alternating between scowling and grinning. He's a good mate. Oh, do tell. We stopped waiting for him to walk outside. Now I carry him outside to his newspapered balcony spot every 2 hours. Voila! Pee drips almost taken care of. What does he have to live for? Willie's hand waves in front of him, posing the question to the windshield. 10 o'clock every night, I take him on the scooter to the park. Samson loves to ride on the scooter. I swerve left and right, and he leans like a skier. I neglect to mention last month I fit a cardboard box on the scooter because Samson wasn't strong enough to stay balanced. When he can't ride on the scooter any longer, I thought we would put him to sleep. I'm giving him longer while he's not in pain. Then I add, there's been a few times we thought Samson would pass away from one thing or another, but he always bounced back again. What do your sons say? Willie loves our sons more than anyone who isn't family. He would feel their pain if this didn't end well. They mostly don't want to talk about it, and who can blame them? Petey is a freshman having way too much fun. Davy is about to graduate with big decisions to make. But when they come home to visit, they're happy Samson's still there, hanging in there. They say, poor old Samson, and they thank us for taking good care of their dog. I don't mention feeling fed up sometimes, thinking I'm spending too much time on canine geriatric care. I like that enlarged picture you took of your sons and Evie with the sunset going down behind them. Everyone's so young, and there's Samson, looking about the same as the last time I saw it. I mean him. Yeah, that was at Danshui, on the top walkway next to Fisherman's Wharf. We went out on a boat earlier that same day. The boys were so young, only Evie and I remember it clearly. That was a memorable day. We slipped into a darker quiet, neither of us wanting to say what was on our mind. Willie asked me before I could ask him, what's new going on? Everything cool at home, Dee? I'm still having trouble about our boys being gone. I'm surprised to feel comfortable enough to share this, my core struggle. You mean your young men? Yeah, right, thanks. Transitioning to adulthood, like we're transitioning through adulthood. Uh-huh. So what gets you spinning down? Not hearing from them, the empty bedroom. I stop and look over at Willie. But it's also my own lifelong habits of working to keep any negative or painful feelings from coming up, I confess and sigh. Welcome to the human race, brother. Petey is the same as Davy now, off to school in Taipei. Flown the coop, I laugh mirthlessly. The last 3 years of Petey in high school when Davy was in college were pretty great. This summer I knew it was coming, and, well, these last few months are sometimes kind of sad. Willie listens and twists his bottle cap back and forth. I want to feel their joy more updated than they naturally offer. Willie sees me shake my head, feeling guilty, but still I whine on. I want to continue in their overall education. Willie's car phone beeps a different song line, ending my empty nest pity party. Line text. He opens his smartphone rather than use the car's computer screen. It's updates from Big Guy. Willie sighs, looking at the phone screen. Nothing new. Typhoon news mostly. He hands me his phone to see for myself. Willie inadvertently takes his foot off the gas pedal for a second. We came around a green mountain curve aimed for a long straightaway to the next hills when the sky took us aback. Dead ahead is such a strange sight. Willie's eyebrows and eyelids are widened, and he sucks in an open-mouthed breath. We lean forward to get a better look at an enormous dark curtain in front. The afternoon sky will blacken as night in about 2 kilometers. As dark as it is, what is amazing is how it looks more like a bunched herd of narrow funnel clouds jammed together. I have the impression the entire wall is gyrating in front of us. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the reading this time. Please leave a comment if you did. What did you think? Remember, sharing is caring, so please do tell a friend who would like to join us here. If you are enjoying the journey, I'd be so grateful if you would be a supporter and pick up a copy of Danshui President Plunge on Amazon and leave a review. Until next time, take care. I look forward to seeing you here again. See you then.